Good morning and blessings to you all. My name is Ed Tick. Welcome, old friends and new, young, and old. You are an essential part of our service and our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th time Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. And now Kate Dahlstedt will call us to worship with her original poem entitled, My Church.
My church. My church today, arms outstretched, the open sky, a fair wind fluttering my face. I was blessed there among the congregation, birch and pine, maple and ash, chestnut and cherry. I melded with the earth and floated also in the sky. Big and all was I, and wide, all of me, swirling in the melody of spirits, dancing on the edge of grace.
At this time, I light a chalice, and I invite you to light a chalice, candle, or lamp where you are too.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you this morning. I'd like to spend some time looking at our seventh principle. I'll begin with a quote by Jacques Cousteau. He said, "For most of history, humans have had to fight nature to survive. In this century, we are beginning to realize that in order to survive, we must protect it." As UUs, we have all made a covenant to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. It's our seventh principle. However, what does that covenant actually mean? We affirm our belief that all things are connected in some way, impacted by each other and ever evolving. Nothing exists all by itself. Nothing is separate or unaffected by anything else. This we can easily affirm, but what does it mean to promote respect for this great web? Does it mean we will celebrate Earth Day every year, or that we don't litter? Or perhaps it means we enjoy sitting on a mountaintop under the autumn sky. I had a friend many years ago who went on a spiritual quest for several days alone in the woods of Vermont. He returned having had an amazing vision. After a few days, and while he was lying beneath a clear night sky, he had what he described as a mystical experience. He began to feel his individual self dissolving and merging into the great universe. He suddenly felt himself and his life to be utterly inconsequential, a mere grain of sand. Compared to the vast universe, he was nothing. However, at the same time, he was totally at one with the fabric of the great web and knew intimately that he was an essential thread of that web, just as we all are. It is an interdependent web. I'm asking you to hold this hard concept for a few moments, how small and insignificant we can feel compared to the night sky. Yet the vast universe, the sacred web, isn't separate from us. It is us, and we are each an integral thread. All that we are is totally shaped by this great web, and we in turn shape it. It's an incredible, amazing system, an endlessly evolving cause and effect, a grand eternal waltz. Recently, another friend of mine proclaimed that Mother Earth is telling us now that we need to wake up. Of course, she was referring to the horrific historic wildfires, hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes we've experienced in recent weeks. It's nice to think of the earth as a loving mother who would warn us of impending doom. But I fear that's not the case. The earth, I suspect, doesn't care about us any more than it cares for horseshoe crabs or frogs or bees. The web simply responds as it always has. And right now, that response is killing crabs and frogs and bees because we have changed the environmental conditions they need to survive. The habitats that allow them to reproduce and thrive have been altered in ways that make them unsustainable. I won't go on to give you all the reasons why we need frogs and crabs. However, I will mention bees and other pollinators because it's easier to see their roles in our lives. It's very simple. 70% of the top food crops grown worldwide rely on pollinators. That's 90% of the world's nutrition. For the last few decades, the US population of bees has declined by 30% a year. That's alarming, maybe even terrifying. Mother Earth is not going to put an engraved note in everyone's mailbox to tell them that it's almost too late. Their food supply is dwindling. She will simply respond by evolving around us, in spite of us, like she has with crabs and frogs. For Mother Earth, it's not personal. She has no favorite children. To me, the sacred web is made up of many smaller webs. It includes all of the ways we are connected to each other and to all else. And I'm reminded of an essay I wrote many years ago. I had spent 3 days and nights lying on the wooded mountain alone, seeking wisdom that I could live by. Most of the time I had been sitting, looking with fascination at all of the small pieces of the life around me, the little acorn tops that look like hats, the busy ants and bees, the sticky pitch on the ends of pine needles, the sun that poked through the dense trees in small and delightful patches. On my last day, I lied on my back and stared up at the expanse of the treetops. This is what I later wrote about that day. As I looked up, I saw the surrounding trees converge high above me. Their leaves and branches were all entwined so that I could not make out one from the other. There were many varieties, young and old, thick and slender. And there were smaller ones stretching their way up, searching for available sunlight. Suddenly, I felt myself in the midst of a true community. These trees had come together not by choice, but by circumstance. Their planting and rooting there was by chance, not unlike our own. They thrived, sharing resources with others that fate had placed by their sides. The older and stronger ones had more. The younger and smaller ones had less. But eventually, the older ones would die off and leave room and sunlight for the smaller ones. There was a grand harmony about these woods, something eternal and right. No one tree or species could claim it all. They stood together with different needs and separate gifts, limbs woven like fingers in prayer, a great web of necessity and reliance, of practicality and holiness. When I left the woods, I headed down the mountain to join an encampment of friends. As I got close, I could see from above all the different colors of their clothing, the reds, oranges, and greens. Some were laughing, some were working, some were sitting still. And I could see beyond my tears of delight that grand harmony in them as well. So now I come back to my question. What does it mean to affirm and promote respect for the interconnected web of all existence? For some people, especially Unitarian Universalists, the interconnected web is the ultimate, the sacred, the closest to the divine that we can experience. I can confirm that for myself. I call it the sacred mystery or the all. I wonder what you call it. But what does it mean to affirm and promote respect for the great web of our existence? I'd like to postulate that respect implies that each of us must be accountable for how we interact and impact the rest of the world. That would require a continuous, conscious awareness of our place in the universe. Every action, every decision would be made in the context of that awareness. As UUs, we do fairly well in this regard, regarding our relations to other people. We work to respect the worth and dignity of each other's opinions, decisions, and lifestyles. We give each other a hand once in a while, and we often don't need to be asked. We are a community, and that's how communities function. The number of us who are involved in the beloved conversations is also an indication of our commitment to one another and to the greater society. Can we imagine being that conscientious in our relations with the earth? The recent wildfires out west and the hurricanes and flooding that even threatened us here in the Northeast are indicators that we humans have not been good stewards of the earth. Rather, we have neglected the sacred web. Now, I'm not pointing fingers or being holier than anybody, but I am aware of indigenous peoples, even right here, for whom the earth is the primary concern in everyday life. Every decision is made with a sensibility for its impact on the environment, not just in the short term, but for 7 generations into the future. When I look 7 generations into the future, what I can see is destruction and a world in which having to fight for clean water and clean air will be the norm, where mass migrations away from dangerous weather areas and fuel deserts lead to overcrowded cities, where the world's food supplies are inadequate and mass starvation is epidemic. As bleak as this vision is, I can also imagine something different. I can visualize a world with new, clean technologies and ways of doing things that allow us to be safe and comfortable sustainably. I can imagine new global approaches to living that are harmonious with nature in a way that allows us all to thrive, in a way that does consider all peoples as well as future generations. I'm sorry I don't have the answers to how we get from where we are now to such a future world. But I have grandchildren, and I want to leave them a better future than the one we face now. One concept I've been considering lately comes from the book Hope's Edge by Frances LaPay and her daughter Anna LaPay. While traveling through several third world countries, they found repeatedly that communities that thrived had solved problems by what we call solving for pattern, meaning finding where problems intersect and overlap and devising a cost-effective solution that will impact them all in positive, productive, and sustainable ways. That sounds smart to me. So maybe that would be a place to start. Another thing the book made clear to me is the power of community. Just like the critters around us, both flora and fauna, we humans always thrive better in community. We can't solve the ecological crisis we are in all alone, one bag of compost at a time. However, like the mycelium under our feet, we can form a human web inside the great web that grows deeper and that grows deep enough to sustain us and wide enough to share. In closing, I remember Margaret Reed, who once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Blessed be. We close this time with the words of Wayne Aronson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Blessed be